Coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, the Raiders lose another game that was very winnable as they dropped to the Pittsburgh Steelers 13-10 on Christmas Eve. We'll talk about the game, we'll talk about the quarterback position, and we'll get your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, all coming up on a very loaded Monday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, December 26, 2022.
Just win. Just win. Just win. Just win.
The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won. And won. And won. And won. And won.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen each and every day. Remember, you can find the Locked On Raider podcast free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Thanks to my man Ari. Make sure that we're up there each and every day. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed to our YouTube page, checked it out for a minute or 35 minutes. Whatever it is, we definitely appreciate that. And again, shout out to my man Ari. You can find him on Twitter at Ari Produces. He's the guy that makes it happen each and every day. Got a lot to get to on today's show. Another disappointing show as we're talking about another Raiders loss, right? And a game that they should have won. Another game that they should have won. And I hate to say that. I hate to be the shoulda, woulda, coulda guy. But, man, more times than not this season, it's been that case when it comes to the Raiders. There's so many shoulda, woulda, coulda, but they didn't. They dropped to the Pittsburgh Steelers 13-10. They're 6-9 on the season. And, again, it's just a game that really it felt like they were in control. And the Steelers were giving them so many opportunities to really take a stranglehold on it, right? Just kind of put them away, and the Raiders never can do it. So they lose 13-10. Kenny Pickett, the quarterback for the Steelers, comes back, throws a touchdown pass at the end of the game, puts the Steelers up, and they eventually win the game. And just very disappointing for the Silver and Black. Again, a team that travels from the west to the east, goes into the cold. It was a tough environment. Of course, it was the Franco Harris night where they were retiring his jersey. There was a lot of emotions in the stadium, but there wasn't a lot of fans in the stadium. I mean, if you looked around the game, there were so many empty seats, so it's not like the elements were too much for them. The only thing they had to really overcome was the weather, and I thought that the Raiders did a pretty good job of dealing with the weather, just like the Steelers had to deal with the weather, but they just couldn't find a way to win the game, and it was really a big disappointment. I always like to look at the numbers when it comes to the game. Derek Carr, 16 for 30, 174 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. And 2 out of the 3 interceptions were definitely his fault. The other interception was on Foster Moreau, but either way you look at it, man, you just can't have multiple turnovers in a game and think you're going to win it, and that's what the Raiders did. Darren Waller, 4 catches, 58 yards. It was nice to see him active again, but I also didn't see him in the game enough. Right, that was one of the things I looked up at, and I was like, man, where's 83? Where's 83? Where's 83? And he was in there, and I know they're trying to get him reacclimated to game action as he was out for most of the season, but, man, you need to have this guy more times than not, and he was out there, and when he was out there, he played well. Again, 4 catches, 58 yards, and one of the catches he made right before halftime was a very tough catch. One he had to turn around, and, the weather and the field is all icy and all kind of messed up, and he had to really adjust to the ball that Derek Carr threw and made a nice catch, and it led to a Raider field goal, but just not enough as far as I'm concerned when it comes to Darren Waller. Would like to see him more out there more often than not. Hunter Renfrow was another guy, had 4 catches, 42 yards. Every time he caught the ball, it was basically a first down, and he had a touchdown on the first drive of the game. Unfortunately for the Raiders, that was the last time that they saw the end zone, and that just can't happen. You can't have an opening drive, score a touchdown, and never sniff the end zone again. And that's what the Raiders did, and again, lost 13-10, never scored after halftime. They scored 10 points in the first half and never scored another point in the second half. That's even worse, but Hunter Renfrow, he looked like he was his old Hunter self, which is good. But when the Raiders lose, not really, because now you're looking at it like, okay, so what are they playing for? And I know that mathematically they're still kind of alive in the playoff hunt, but does it even matter at this point? I don't think so. So Hunter Renfrow, decent day for the day. Would like to see him get in the end zone or see anyone get in the end zone more times than not. Devontae Adams, only 2 catches for 15 yards on 9 targets. There's no excuse for that. When you have Devontae Adams, there's no excuse for only 2 catches and 15 yards. And I know the weather was bad. I get it. But Derek Carr threw the ball way more times than I expected him to throw, 30 times. But if you're going to throw it that many times, you got to complete some passes to Devontae Adams. So many times he threw the ball and it was high, didn't even give Devontae Adams a chance. You've got to be able to get the ball in his hands. It's got to be frustrating. If I'm Devontae and he just came from Green Bay and put up all the epic numbers that he did with Aaron Rodgers, he's got to be second guessing himself right now, thinking, what in the hell did I sign up for? Because half the time, I mean, out of those 9 targets, maybe 4 of them were actually catchable, right? The other ones were out of bounds, over his head. They just didn't, no rhyme or reason. So Devontae Adams has got to be frustrated. So he only had 2 catches, 15 yards on 9 targets on Saturday. And then Josh Jacobs on the ground, 15 carries for 44 yards. And please believe he was not happy with that. He wasn't happy the fact that the Raiders went away from the run so much. He carried the rock a lot on the first drive of the game when they got into the end zone. And then you didn't really see from him too much, right? I know the Steelers defense is really good when it comes to the run. I think they were ranked top 5, but Josh Jacobs is so good. You got to continue to give him the rock. Give him a chance, especially in that weather. Why aren't you pounding the ball? Why does he only have 15 carries? I mean, Derek Carr threw the ball 30 times. If anything, I'd like to see Josh Jacobs run the ball 30 times. It's not like they got far behind because they never were behind until the end, until Kenny Pickett threw that touchdown pass. Then they got behind. They were leading the whole game, so I would have loved to seen a bigger emphasis on the ground game with Josh Jacobs. As a matter of fact, Josh Jacobs would as well. Vinny Bonsignore and a couple other media members caught up to him in the Raiders locker room following the game. This is what Josh Jacobs had to say, and please believe he's not too happy.
Oh, it feels like kind of another loss where you guys let it slip through your hands. And as you look back at some of these losses, these close losses, how disappointing is that a lot of this has been self-inflicted?
Yeah, man, it's bullshit for real. I mean, it's bullshit. And it's on us, you know. Everybody wanted, you know, talk about the defense, but they made their stops when they were supposed to. We got to help them out. And, you know, I'm tired of saying we got to help them out. And it's just frustrating. So, yeah.
You feel like they were focused on top in the running game? That's what kind of their focus?
I mean, yeah. I mean, we still had opportunities to make plays. You know, I feel like in times where we was close and we felt like we was about to get a big one, we went away from it. You know, and you know, and the pass game was working early, so you know that is what it is. But to win these games, you know, especially at the end of the stretch, especially when you up, you know, against a team like this in the cold, you got to run the ball. So I mean, that's a factor on everybody involved, from top to bottom.
How many times can you keep talking about sort of the same things and learning the same lessons?
Man, I'm tired of dealing with this shit. I'm tired of dealing with this shit. Like, every day I come here and bust my ass. I see the guys, you know, bust their ass, and, you know, and the result is not there. And, you know, for me, the last 4 years, the result hasn't been there. And quite frankly, I don't know what else to do. So, yeah. That is what it is.
So there was Josh Jacobs in the Raiders locker room following the game. They only had 19 total rushes for the game. That's it. Out of everybody, and 15 came from Josh Jacobs, a couple other from Brandon Bolden, and I mean, and then you have Amir Abdullah, and that's cool. But Brandon Bolden, I knew that the Raiders were in trouble when I saw Brandon Bolden carrying the ball. When he was back there, because Zamir White was inactive, I was thinking, oh man, what's really going on? So Josh Jacobs, you hear him right there, not very happy with the production from the running back room, not very happy with the production that he had. The carries that he had, clearly you could see that he wanted to get the ball more than he did in the game on Saturday, and he should have. He should have got the ball a lot more. And on top of that, the Raiders missed so many opportunities. The Steelers gave the Raiders so many opportunities to win the game and just put them away, just step on their neck and end it, and the Raiders couldn't do it. They missed 2 field goals. Kenny Pickett threw an interception to Denzel Perryman. They didn't capitalize on that. Derek Carr turned around, threw a interception on the very next play. Like, oh, hey, I'll raise your interception. I'll throw an interception as well. And I know that one was off Foster Morrow's hand, and really it was a assist by Foster. But either way you look at it, man, it's just like so many opportunities right there in front of you, and you cannot capitalize. The offense for the Raiders was so stale most of the game. They only scored 10 points, and they were all in the first half, nothing in the second half. You can't tell me this team is not able to come up with at least a field goal or 2 in the second half. If they do that, if they come up with 2 field goals, man, they win that game. That's all they needed was 6 more points, and they win that game, and they couldn't find a way to do it, and they had so many opportunities. Just a really bad game. I understand the frustration from the team. I understand the frustration from Josh Jacobs, and really don't know what the answer is, but I do feel like that game on Saturday just about sealed the deal on the fate of quarterback Derek Carr. What do I mean by that? Well, we'll talk about that coming up in segment number 2. Before we get to that, though, do want to tell you about one of the great sponsors here of the Locked On Raiders podcast, and that is Prize Picks. And I know you're wondering right now, what is Prize Picks? Well, it's daily fantasy made simple. You're not playing against anybody, no competition against any people. It's just you versus the projections available. You pick 2 to 5 players. If they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you watch, NFL, NBA. There was plenty of NBA on Christmas Day. I really got caught up in watching a lot of hoop action, including the Warriors, who had a big win without Steph Curry. I thought that was awesome. But NHL, PGA, college football, of course, bowl season's going on, men's college hoop, women's college hoops, all that's going on. Prize Picks has got you. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals. Currently operational in over 30 states and in Canada. All you got to do is download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. All first-time users can receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. You deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. You deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. Don't forget, use the promo code Locked On to sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to talk about the big elephant in the room. Of course, that's Derek Carr. Had a lot of people hit me up by way of Twitter. A lot of people hit me up by way of text message. Just a lot of people in general in conversation when I was, around the city on over the weekend. Saturday, Sunday, and obviously today, talking about Derek Carr and the fact that, okay, we've seen enough. This is what the fan base is talking about. We've seen enough. Ready to move on from quarterback Derek Carr. We already know how good he's going to be. And, I feel like the game that he had on Saturday against the Steelers kind of sealed the deal. I know my man PE in North Carolina hit me up right after the game and was like, what the hell are you going to do with Derek Carr? And I said, I think he sealed the deal. There's been a lot of conversation about the final 4 games of the season. We're going to determine a lot. A lot of guys were going to earn their job or lose their job based off what they did the last 4 games. And I really feel like that game on Saturday against the Steelers kind of told you all you needed to know about Derek Carr. There was too many times, and I know the first interception he threw, Foster Moreau hit the ball, it bounced off his hand and went into a Steelers defender's hands, and that was an interception. I was willing to forgive that one. But then he had the other 2 interceptions. One he threw behind Hunter Renfrow. That got deflected off of Hunter's hands and went into a defender's hands, and Steelers get the ball. And then the last one, he tried to hit Hunter Renfrow and wasn't even close on the last drive of the game, and the Steelers come up with an interception. And I don't know, man. I don't know what to do with that quarterback position because I look at this Raiders team, and I don't think that they're a total reset away, right? I don't think that they need to press the complete reset button and start all over. I think that'd be silly. I think they have really good players and they have enough to get it done. But obviously the quarterback position, especially you see him in the cold weather right there. I mean, that was just a bad day for Derek Carr. But when you got the microscope on you and you've got to perform, you've got to do better. The Raiders have a big option on him following the Super Bowl, what they're going to do with his contract. If they decide to pick it up, that's a lot of money they owe him. If not, they move on from him. So I just kind of look at it and think about the body of work, think about the fact that this is another losing season. The Raiders aren't going to go to the playoffs this year, and this is 1 year after being in the playoffs. And I get it. A lot of people are going to be mad at Josh McDaniels, but I look at Derek Carr and say, you know what? He's got to be better than he's been, right? He's a veteran quarterback. I know it's a new system. I know he's had tons of systems to work with. Not going to make excuses for him. He's got to be able to find a way to adapt. And he's got to be able to find a way to adapt and achieve and be that guy. And he just hasn't been that guy. So I really feel like that game on Saturday sealed the deal. Now, when I say that sealed the deal in his future, you move on from Derek Carr. What's the next option? That's something that I've been asking anyone who will listen. Okay, so what do you do if you move on from Derek Carr? Which I do feel like the Raiders are probably in position to do that. I'll say that right now. I have no problem on December 26, 2022, saying that I think that the Raiders are going to move on from him following the season. And I didn't believe that a couple weeks ago. I felt like Derek Carr will be back in 2023. But the way that things are looking right now, I just feel like that Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler and Champ Kelly are going to say, you know what? Yeah, we'll try better with this guy. But the question is, who is that guy? I don't think that a rookie quarterback is the best option. I really don't. One, you look at Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams came to the Raiders to play with Derek Carr. He came to be on the West Coast. He came to play for the team that he grew up being a big fan of. So, okay, so now he's a member of the Raiders. Are you moving on for Devontae Adams as well? Or are you keeping him in the mix? If you're keeping him in the mix, do you really want a rookie quarterback trying to throw him the ball and try to learn this system as well and try to get him in the mix? He didn't want a young quarterback throwing on the ball in Green Bay. He was concerned about if Aaron Rodgers decided to retire or move on, that Jordan Love was going to be the guy. So are you telling me he's going to be comfortable with a quarterback that, the Raiders could go draft and all of a sudden he's going to be the guy? I don't think so. Now, if you decide that you're going to move on from Devontae Adams, that's a different subject. I don't think they're going to do that. They gave him the contract. They, they went and made the trade for him. I don't think it's going to be a one and done with Devontae Adams, but what do you do? So in my opinion, your best option is to go out there and get a veteran, but who are you going to go get? Right? I mean, Raider Nation, who are you comfortable with? Like, everyone has the idea of move on from Derek Carr, move on from Derek Carr, move on from Derek Carr. Okay, fine. But who are you bringing in now? Who's the next guy? Who's the quarterback that you feel like is going to get it done? There's some veterans that'll be available, but do you want them? Like, Jimmy G is going to be available. I'm not a big fan of Jimmy G. I think he's good. I don't think he's great. I think he's good enough, but is that what you want? Good enough? You want to go and make a move for good enough? Or you want to get someone that you have confidence in that you feel like is going to take your team to the next level? Are you going to try to trade for Aaron Rodgers out of Green Bay? That's a whole lot of money that's on his contract. That's $50 million that he's owed on his contract. I know they can get it done, but now you're giving up your draft picks again. You already gave up your first and second round draft pick for Devontae Adams just last offseason. So now you're going to go and give up another first round pick, multiple first round picks to bring in Aaron Rodgers and that contract on what's probably a couple years deal at most, because he's not going to play a whole lot of years. So is that your option? Are you going to go and get Tom Brady, who's going to be a free agent following this year from Tampa Bay? And I know that he has the ties with Josh McDaniels, and we all know what Tom Brady's done in his career, but is Tom Brady that guy anymore? What if you sign Tom Brady and he's not that dude? What if he is the guy that he looks like he is in Tampa Bay right now? That's not very good. So if you're looking at veterans, you're like, okay, Jimmy G, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, none of those guys excite the hell out of me right now. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Aaron Rodgers would be fantastic for a couple years. I don't know. But what is your solution after that? Again, you got to give up draft capital to go and get Aaron Rodgers. You've got to get free agency money to go get Jimmy G. You got to give up free agency money to go get Tom Brady. You could always draft a guy in the draft, but where you're sitting at right now with 6 wins, you're probably going to pick, no higher than maybe number 8 overall. Maybe if you're lucky, you slide in at the number 8 overall position. That'll probably get you the 4th best quarterback in the draft. So I just look at it like I feel like Derek Carr has sealed the deal, and the team and the front office and the staff is ready to move on from him, and they'll be okay with moving on from him. But I just wonder, do they know who their next guy could be? Who could it possibly be? I even heard someone float out the idea that Josh McDaniels would try to trade to go get Mac Jones from the Patriots. I don't see that happening. I really don't. I don't think the Patriots would do that, because who's their quarterback going to be? Bailey Zappi? I don't think so. They're going to go draft a guy? I doubt it. So, it's so easy to want to move on from a certain guy, and that's fine. Again, I have no problem with that, because he kind of has shown everything that he is, right? I like Derek Carr for stabilizing the quarterback position with the Raiders. I've said it years ago that I like what he did with stabilizing the quarterback position. But it's okay to want more. So if you want more, great. There's nothing wrong with that. But who's more? Who's going to be that guy? That's the biggest question. That's the question that I have. I always ask everybody, it's okay if you want to move on from a certain guy, but give me a plan. Give me your plan on what you're going to do moving forward. So from based off what I saw on Saturday and the massive disappointment that I had watching the Raiders lose another game that they shouldn't lose, and there's been too many of those this season. And I know someone's going to say, well, just move on from the coach. Josh McDaniels sucks. He's not a good head coach. I can hear it now. I don't see the Raiders moving on from him after 1 year. You can't just keep hiring coaches, firing coaches, hiring coaches, firing coaches. You can't. So I think that he gets at least 1 more year. But I don't know if Derek Carr is going to get 1 more year. So Raider Nation, I'll throw it out there to you. What do you do? What do you do at the quarterback position? You want to move on from Carr? That's fine. I'm not mad at that. Just tell me, what do you do? What is the solution? What is the right answer at the QB position to, 1, make everybody happy, and 2, make this team a much better team and a much bigger threat moving forward. 707-654-4693. That is the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line. Of course, we'll get to those calls and texts straight after we do this, talk about one of our great sponsors here on the Locked On Raiders podcast, and that's NHTSA. And you're hanging out with some friends, you're putting back a few drinks, a few becomes a few too many. And as the evening comes to an end, people start to head out. You're thinking about calling a ride. You're like, nah, I'm good. I live nearby. You can make it home okay, right? It's no big deal. What are the odds you're going to get pulled over anyway? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? Your insurance goes up. You might lose your license. You lose your job. You could total your car. Or worst of all, you could kill someone. Everyone knows about the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. And that's why police officers are out right now looking for impaired drivers on the roads to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe, plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. Here we go, Raider Nation, segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start things off with Vader Raider. He's calling in to talk about Derek Carr back in 2016 and reiterates what he feels about Derek Carr in 2022. Here he is, Vader Raider in the 303.
Q, Raider Nation. It's your boy, Vader Raider. First of all, Q, thanks again for everything you do for the pod and for Raider Nation. And hope you and your family had a great holiday. Truly. I hope Raider Nation did too. I guess I'll just start it off like this. Back in 2017, I made a call into this podcast, and it was after Derek Carr on 4th and 13, I think it was, threw a ball into the ground on 4th down. Yeah, it was 4th and 17. And he abruptly ended, what could have been an opportunity to at least try to stay in that game. And it was against the Chargers. Here we sit 5 years later, and he's not throwing balls into the ground, but he's making key mistakes a few times. Now, I see a lot of people on Twitter, including myself, that are going all in. Raider Nation, I'm not going to tell you what I tried to tell you all 5 years ago. This dude is done. Okay? I mean, it's not even worth saving at this point. It's not worth trying to be a bridge quarterback. It's not worth it. I think that we as an organization need to move on from this. Everybody talk, if you're gonna die on the hill of, well, you know what, if not him, who, and he, kept us from whatever in 2015 on, what has he done since then? What has he done since 2017? Nothing. What has I think it was 2018 actually when that game happened, not 2017. But Raider Nation, it's a perfect example of what happened last night of Derek Carr is not getting it done. You can say whatever you want to about the play calling, and you're probably right. It's probably suspect too. Oh, and by the way, yeah, Josh Jacobs is as good as gone. I saw the interview on Twitter, and yeah, he's gone. We're gonna, and those of you also wanting to die on the Devontae Adams is going to leave. Well, check this out, Raider Nation. He is a professional. Okay, he's a professional that is earning money from the team. He was a Raider fan first before he was a Derek Carr fan. So there's that. All right. Hopefully we won't lose Devontae too, but we're looking at the possibility of not having Josh. Anyway, Raider Nation, I hope y'all had a great Christmas. This one was sour, and this one was real bad, and it was not a good Christmas for me. So, all right, Raider Nation. Merry Christmas to y'all. Vader Raider out.
Thank you so much for the call, my man. I appreciate you and understand the frustration and wanting to move on from Carr. And I think a lot of people want to move on from Carr. And I really honestly feel like the front office probably wants to move on from Carr. And they probably will. But again, my only question is, who do you want as quarterback after that? Right? Who is the guy who's going to fill in the void? That's all I want to know. I'm not disagreeing with anybody. I'm not saying they shouldn't move on from him. I just want to know, what are you going to do next? It's easy to say, get rid of this guy, get rid of that guy, get rid of the other, but tell me what the plan is. Who are you going to have slide in? Who do you ideally want slide in as the next quarterback of the Silver and Black? But thank you so much for that call, Vader Raider. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Raider Black in Maryland. What's going on, Q? It's Raider Black from Maryland. After last night, it's time. Time to move on. Nothing seemed right or looks right with this team. And the players that just aren't being used correctly, like it's some background plan to dismantle this playoff team to build a new one in the secret. Jacobs is gone. After Vinny's locker room interview, he's done with the Raiders. Huge Carr fan, but I'd love to see him on another team. He and Josh to have other teams to watch because I can't invest in this team next year with this staff. They're inept. Call it what you want, but they're inept. Josh had 15 carries in a 9-degree weather, one possession game. Let's throw the ball 30 times in that same weather with the offensive line. And yes, Carr played bad, overthrows and bad placements. But you have the leading rusher who's about that life. He gets 15 touches. I don't trust his coaching staff. Cover 2 in the red zone, middle of the field wide open for the game winner. Hobbs has regressed. The whole team has regressed under the staff. It's not players learning to win. It's the coaches that need to learn to win. I can't support this staff, Raiders for life, but the staff is not going to win. Again, Raider Black in Maryland. Thank you so much for the text, my man. I do appreciate you. And yeah, man, that blew my mind as well. And Josh Jacobs, you heard that interview of Vinny in the locker room following the game. You could clearly see he was frustrated, upset, mad. It's been 4 years, and he's used to winning, and he's not winning. Only having 15 carries. That was a game, and I said it the whole time I was watching the game. Give 28 the ball. Give 28 the ball. Give 28 the ball. I don't care if he gets stuffed multiple times. At some point, he's going to break through. You got to keep pounding the rock. I didn't think any chance that Derek Carr would throw the ball 30 times on Saturday, but yet he did. As far as the defense goes, I think they did well. I'm not going to lie. I know Nate Hobbs, he had some issues on Saturday, and he hasn't played that great this season. He really hasn't. But the defense in general, I thought they did a good job. I mean, hell, they only gave up 13 points all game long. They gave the Raiders offense multiple times, multiple opportunities to put points up on the board. The offense is what couldn't get it done. I have no problems with what the defense did. And I think the defense has an opportunity to get a whole lot better. And that was even losing to Denzel Perryman and Chandler Jones. And Denzel Perryman, most likely he's done for the season. He had surgery following the game on Saturday. So most likely he's out with a shoulder injury. And who knows what's going on with Chandler Jones and his elbow injury, but it did not look good. But I thought the defense did good enough to win the game. The Raiders offense just didn't compliment them and help them out. But thank you so much for that text. I do appreciate you. Next up, got a call from Raider Tone in the 661. He's calling to talk about Josh Jacobs and the conversation he had in the locker room following the game. Here he is, Raider Tone in the 661.
What's up, my boy Q? It's Raider Tone from the 661. Calling to wish you a Merry Christmas, man. And man, it just for some reason, and I'm surprised nobody else brought this up. Is nobody saying where did Keyshawn Nixon for the Packers get these return skills all of a sudden? I mean, all these years he was on the Raiders, even with the same special teams coordinator that he got now in Green Bay, and nobody thought to let him return kicks? This is crazy. Speaking of ex-Raiders, I mean, with profound talents now, how about Zay Jones, man? Hell of a season he having, man. Hell of a season he having. But what I really called about was to wish you Merry Christmas, and also to bring up the a clip I seen of Josh Jacobs, man, with just brute honesty. A lot of bleeping out they had to do, but he was just saying he's tired of it. He's been dealing with it for 4 years like he's tired of losing. So, I mean, I don't know about Raider Nation, but when I seen that, I mean, I automatically thought, like, yeah, he's not re-signing with us. You know, he may even take less money just to be on a winning team. Sound like, man, he's tired of losing. You know, so we'll see if he want to, you know, change the organization with Raiders, or if he gonna take less money and go for a winning, you know, playoff contending team. I mean, I love the honesty from him, but man, it was hard watching that, man. I felt bad, man. I felt sorry for him, man. Okay, Raider Nation. Man, let's get these next 2 wins, baby.
Thank you so much for the call, my man. And yeah, when it comes to Keyshawn Nixon, that's funny, man. A blast from the past, right? Been talking about him for a few weeks, and not here on the podcast, but when I was doing different radio shows, I was like, wait a minute. When did Keyshawn Nixon become a punt returner or a kick returner? Well, he's been doing some big things for the Packers, and they didn't even have him as that kick returner at first. They really didn't. I mean, it was basically they put him in there because of necessity, And all of a sudden they realize, like, wow, he's actually really good. Right. So, and that's on Rich Bisaccia. Rich Bisaccia is their special teams coordinator, who obviously was the head coach of the Silver and Black last season. So he never knew that Keyshawn Nixon had that ability, but he's been getting it done. As far as Josh Jacobs goes, man, I know it's fresh. I know he was frustrated in the locker room talking to Vinny. It feels like he's a done deal, right? It feels like he's gone. Basically, that conversation almost made it feel like, yeah, I'm out. Unless the Raiders just throw him some stupid money, I don't. Why would he stick around, right? I mean, I feel like he's given 4 years of his career to the Raiders, and he's done everything he can, and the results, like he said, just aren't there. And it's really unfortunate because, again, it's always, Josh Jacobs is a great player, really a great player, and he's been a great loyal ambassador of the Silver and Black. But thank you so much for that call. I appreciate you. Next up, I got a text from Silver and Black Raider. It says, Q, the Raiders disappointed me again. I went into a diehard Steelers home to watch the game and spend Christmas. I wore my jersey with pride just for them to lose the game. Beginning of the season, I was pumped about everything and even got the logo tatted. But now I just want this miserable season to end. That's from Silver and Black Raider. And there's only 2 more games left, right? New Year's Day against the 49ers, and then the following week against the Kansas City Chiefs. Both those games are going to be very tough for the Raiders to win. Honestly, I don't expect them to win either one of those games. So to end the season 6-11 is going to be such a massive disappointment, when I thought that they were at least a 10-win team and going to be a team that was going to compete for the playoffs. But it just doesn't seem like that's who they are, right? Obviously, only having 6 wins right now and losing that game on Saturday, man, that was so disappointing because, man, they were a team that could compete with the Steelers and could have beat them, no doubt about it. And we've said that too many times throughout the course of the year. It's just very unfortunate. But thank you so much for that text, my man. And, keep that tat, man. The tat looks good, right? The tat's going to be good. And I'm assuming that at some point, this Raiders team is going to get things turned around. You'll be proud of that tattoo again. Again, Silver and Black Raider, thank you so much for your text. We'll close things out with a call from Border Jumping Raider. He says he's calling in to talk about the game on Saturday and what he thinks about the team moving forward when it comes to Derek Carr. Here he goes. Border Jumper Raider.
Q, Border Jumper Raider, Merry Christmas to you, your family, and Raider Nation. Wow. What a disappointing performance last night, and for the most part this entire season. I lived in New England up until about 12 years ago. Grew up in Los Angeles, and when I was 27, I moved out to New England. And I heard it every day being a Raider fan. It took all the banter, all the, we call it ball breaking, and But I'm an intelligent man, and I firmly believe in Josh McDaniel and Dave Ziegler's plan. I bought in. And I firmly believe that Josh McDaniels offensively has put the team in the best position to win. But the trigger man, Derek Carr, and his lackluster play, I think that I've even called in and said why, it's wrong to root against the QB. Well, I've had enough. I think Derek Carr has overwhelmed him to stay in a Raider uniform. Trade him if you can, get draft capital, or just straight out release him. Just let him go. I think he's overstayed his welcome as a Raider, regardless what he says. He's 100% choir boy. I don't want a quarterback to say how he loves Joey Bosa, opponents from the other team. I want a quarterback that silently and in his heart says, I hate those guys, and I'm going to go out there, I'm going to do whatever it takes to beat them. I want that, a trained thought of killer instinct. And the team at the quarterback position right now, and never will, as long as we have Derek Carr, have the killer instinct. So I wish everybody a Merry Christmas in Raider Nation. This is Border Jumper Raider, and I'm out.
Thank you so much for the call, my man. I appreciate you. And yeah, I mean, to me, it feels like Derek Carr's played his last games with the Raiders. Feels like he's got 2 and he's done, right? 2 more left, Niners and Chiefs, and he's done. I don't see how this front office justifies paying him $40 million following, the season, because they have 5 days after the Super Bowl to make a decision on his contract, and then that's going to basically guarantee him about 40 something $1 million. I don't see how they justify that. But I also wonder, like I talked about in segment number 2, okay, if you don't bring him back, what do you do? I would love for this team to have a plan on what they do at the quarterback position. If they're not going to bring DC back, they're not going to pay him that money. What are they going to do? I think that's the biggest question, and they have to have that answer. They cannot go into it and say, oh, well, just get into the draft and draft somebody and hope for the best. That can't happen. If that happens, it's a complete fail, and it's that easy. If they don't have a real plan, and I'm sure they do, like I'm not some genius. So it's not like I just came up with this on my own, right? I mean, they've got to have thought about this already. They're going to move on from DC. They've got to have a plan that they feel very comfortable with that's going to make this team a winner. If not, then in my opinion, what I thought earlier in the season, that I thought, okay, they're going to run it back with DC in 2023, then that is what's ultimately going to happen. But that's what I got for you, Border Jumper Raider. Thank you so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. And Raider Nation, that's what I got for you on today's show. Again, very disappointed with the Raiders losing to the Steelers 13-10, and now they got to prepare for the Niners to come to Allegiant Stadium this Sunday on New Year's. Of course, there's a lot of Niner fans that are going to be ready to be in the building. I think there's going to be a ton of red in Allegiant Stadium, and it really sucks, man. The last 2 games are both at home, and I think you're going to see a lot of the opposing fan bases in the stadium because of the status of where the Raiders are right now. Overall, 6-9, and obviously a team that's not going to make it to the postseason. So we'll see what happens. We'll continue to navigate through the week, Raider Nation. We'll get more calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, more news and notes, and more conversation here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you again so much for making the show your first listen each and every day. Remember, you can find the Locked On Raider podcast free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Thanks to my man Ari at Ari Produces on Twitter. So until tomorrow, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.